Hi everyone, it's American Girl in the UK. I haven't made a video in a good long while, but I have so many video ideas that I want to do and share. I've been living in the UK now for almost 3 years, so there's a lot that I could share and I just need to make the time to do it. But in this video today, I wanted to share my own advice on passing your UK driving test, which I know is a really big stepping stone for a lot of people when they first move here. And it takes a long time too, to even get the test booked in and maybe doing some lessons, which I highly recommend. That's actually my first point, is to definitely take some driving lessons. So yeah, even if you come from a country where you feel like the roads are going to be similar, or you drive a manual car and you think that it might, be easy, you never know. It's probably not going to be quite the same, right? Because there's different rules, there's different signs and road markings that you have to consider. So obviously at this point, I'm giving advice from the point after you have passed your practical test. So the online one that you do, it took me 3 times, but 3 times a charm, I did it. And then I finally was able to start taking some driving lessons. Just as a side note, I gotta put you guys on, like, these are so good. My husband, he brought these home and I'm like, why didn't you bring these sooner? They're so tasty. That's my current favorite snack obsession right now. Maybe I'll do like a snack video sometime if you guys want, like my favorite UK snacks and ones that I would recommend people to try. So advice number 1, definitely get driving lessons. I know some people online have said that they just watch some videos and then they passed fine. If you want to risk that, then sure, go ahead, but I think it is definitely a good idea to get some lessons. Now, my experience and what I would like to share is that me being American, now I know there are Americans that know how to drive manual. We call it stick shift. I was not one of them. But I challenged myself to learn how to drive manual. So I took manual lessons. And I passed with a manual UK driving license. And when you pass with that license, you actually can drive both manual and automatic. So it's your choice. So when I went to go buy a car, I went back to my American ways and I did get automatic again. Yes, even though I had done all the lessons with manual and thought I would, try to challenge myself with that. I think it was too much for me. Like I should have been a bit more honest with myself. I think it was just too much for me to think about when I was driving. And it was completely new to me. I had no even prior knowledge or sort of conception, I guess, of how it works. And it being my left hand too kind of felt weird. So yes, I can actually drive manual, but I am much more comfortable driving automatic, especially too since my job, I drive a lot for work and I just felt more comfortable and safer sticking to automatic. So my advice with that is if you are more comfortable driving automatic and you want to, get your license and be on your merry way, just do automatic lessons. You probably will only need a few lessons, if that, maybe less even. So it just depends on the person. Everyone's different. So just keep that in mind too. Like everyone has different strengths and weaknesses. Some people might have anxiety. I get anxious, so I was definitely overthinking a lot with the manual lessons. But again, I felt like it was because I had so much to think about. I was trying to observe my surroundings, read signs, and then think about what my left hand is doing and the clutch with my left foot, and to me, that felt a little overwhelming. But as a sidebar, I think I have undiagnosed ADHD. If you think you may have that or you know you have that, just keep that in mind, that I found that for me personally to be pretty tricky. And if you have maybe more anxious tendencies, that manual car driving a little bit more intimidating, I would say. I did feel confident once I learned it, but every manual car is gonna be different. So I learned in my instructor's car. But once, like for example, when I went into my husband's manual Volkswagen, that felt really weird, and I was trying to find the bite, and it's like you have to relearn again almost, when you get your own manual car. It's going to feel different from your instructor's car. And of course, it's going to feel a little different in an automatic car by all means, but I don't think not to this level. Just something to keep in mind. My advice would be to, if you are used to automatic, stick with automatic. It'll just make the process so much more easier on yourself, unless of course you really do want to learn how to drive manual. Maybe that's something, I know there are some people who really want to learn. I thought I was one of those people. But if you are one of those people that just really want to learn how to drive a car that way, and you feel very committed to doing it, then by all means do it. I'm not by any means knocking manual car driving. It is a great way to drive a car, and there are pros with it, like especially when you're in hilly areas, it can be a lot easier to accelerate and go up hills and things. I just felt like, again, it was just too much thinking about what I'm doing, especially with roundabouts too, which will be my next point. The roundabouts, you are constantly then having to downshift again and then go back up and then down. So it felt like too much back and forth for me. I didn't mind it as much if I was like on a dual carriageway, maybe even like a motorway too, where you're just driving consistently at a certain speed. Then it's not so bad, and maybe you have to just shift down a little bit. But when you're in areas where you're constantly having to stop and then go through roundabouts, I found it to be just too much work. But again, I went back to my lazy American ways and stuck with automatic. So if you are thinking about trying manual, give a lesson a try and just see, how you feel. Maybe a couple lessons and see if you want to continue, or if you just decide, no, I'm going to stick with automatic driving. So it will depend, like I said, on the country that you're from and what you're used to. So I think sticking to what you know is probably the easiest way as far as getting that driving license and feeling confident and comfortable as possible in being in a new country, of course. So before I go on to my second piece of advice, please like this video and do subscribe to my channel. I promise I'm going to put out more videos. I have been putting up some little shorts. I'll try to get some more on there. So number 2, roundabouts. Yes. This is part kind of branching off of the lessons. You do want to get enough practice and feel comfortable with doing roundabouts, because you will have to go through at least one or more during your driving test. And I should have probably said in the beginning of this video, but the UK driving test is a way different experience compared to the one I did in the United States. The UK driving test is way more extensive. It's not actually, when I did the test, it didn't feel as long as I thought it would. I think it was about 40 minutes, 40 or 45 minutes, they say, for the lesson. I'm sorry, not the lesson, the test. It goes so quick though, because you are just focused and you're driving and going through the motions. And then I actually got stuck in a little bit of school traffic too. It was like after school time. which actually worked in my favor, I feel like. So maybe I'll make a separate video on my experience, but without this getting too long, yes, I do think that you definitely need to put in that practice because you're going to run into at least one roundabout on your test route. I had a few roundabouts and I went through small roundabouts, so through the area. They're going to test you on all those areas like hill starts and going through like a higher speed road. There was actually a few roundabouts where I used to live in the States, but that being said, they were smaller ones, and I actually don't think we really knew what we were doing when we were going through those. Definitely have an instructor tell you how it works first and then take you through them. I found that that was very helpful for me, is getting that verbal explanation and then showing, and then I have an understanding that you look to the right, you give way to the right. You still want to look both ways, but you want to give way to the right and let them through first. And my advice with that, to go off of that as well, I found it easiest to treat it as like an intersection. That was the best way for my brain to wrap my head around it for some reason. Just like it's like, again, that concept of you're at an intersection and you give way to the person on your right. So you take turns and let them through, and then once they've gone, then you go. So yeah, that was something that helped me. Now, unless you are going through one of the larger roundabouts, then that might be a little bit different. So then you have to look at lanes and have lane discipline. So again, definitely practice this. Practice all the roundabouts. Practice the small ones, which are the easiest, and then maybe a medium-sized one, and then the bigger ones where you have to go into certain lanes to get to certain roads, and then counting each exit can be very helpful too. That's something that I've watched videos on that I also found to be helpful. But if you are in one of the larger ones, I've just found it's best if you know what lane you're supposed to be in, just stick to that and just follow that the best you can. Worst case scenario, just this has happened to me multiple times. I've, maybe went one too early or one that was later. So you just go with it. Don't panic. Just go with it, and then you'll find your way back around. If you're on your own at this point with a license, then you just, use your sat nav to get you back on track, which I've had to do, like I said, many times until I got used to maybe driving in that area that I was in. And for my third piece of advice, speaking of, going different places and getting familiar, have your instructor take you to where your actual driving test is going to be. That will be so helpful. I did a few different lessons at the location of where my driving test would be. They will change up the routes when you do the test. They always like change it up a little bit, but generally, like, your instructor will, and I'm sure the instructor will know too from their own, experience with past students, where to take you and where to guide you. So that way you can get familiar with that test route. So that will be so helpful for you with your driving test itself. So that's really all I have to say about that third piece of advice. Pretty straightforward. Just get your practice in at the actual location of where your test will be. The fourth piece of advice I would say is observations. Over exaggerate your observations. I felt like I was looking all over, but my instructor might have said, you forgot to, check maybe the mirror, or maybe I only glanced at it, So I would say over exaggerate, especially when you take your test. Over exaggerate your observations. Like, your head should be looking all over. Mirrors, blind spot, other blind spot, yeah. Check it all, 360. So, and I'm not saying to not actually look, like please do actually look, but you're gonna, yeah, over exaggerate your looking that you need to do. You know, maybe you'll end up getting a car that has backup cameras. I don't have one like that, but you don't want to like get too comfortable with that, you know. And I'm sure if you are practicing with an instructor too, they probably wouldn't have that turned on, unless maybe during a parallel park practice. That's another one that you'll have to definitely do a lot of observations if they ask you to do that on the test. They'll ask you to do some sort of maneuverability. Again, I could make a separate video on this, but I got really lucky and they didn't ask me to parallel park, which I was glad. I can parallel park really good actually, but I parallel park better when I'm in an automatic and not worried about changing gears. And also during your test, they will, if they ask you to parallel park, this is a little bit of a tangent, but if they ask you to parallel park, you have to do it like in one go. You could, this is what my instructor told me, you can say, you can ask them to, can I shunt? Which is not a word that I've ever heard, but I guess you can say, can I shunt or shunt it or something? If you realize that maybe you didn't position yourself quite enough, so then you can correct yourself and then try again and go back. But you only get one little try. So that's like your one freebie if you do get asked about parallel parking. And because otherwise you pretty much have to do it in one go. Whereas like naturally, if I'm parallel parking on the street, which I actually do quite often, I have more of that chance to correct myself if I need to. But during the test, like you don't have room for error in that regard. So I hope that makes sense. Same thing too, if they ask you to do like a bay park or a reverse bay park, just to sum that up, over exaggerate your observations, but actually look, of course. You know, you might think that there's no cars around you. Maybe you've been in a quiet area, you think there's no cars, but all of a sudden there's somebody on a bike. That's something too that was a bit different for me living here, is there's a lot of bicyclists, so you have to be aware of that because they are part of the road unless they have their own bike lane, which they don't always have that. So there could be somebody on a bike or pedestrian that just, you know, comes out of nowhere. So that's why you should, you know, no matter what you're doing, whatever maneuverability you're doing, over exaggerate your observations 100%. And for my last piece of advice, so number 5, basically, this is a hard one. It's easier said than done, but don't overthink it. And I know this comes from somebody that has anxiety and can definitely overthink. I overthought a lot of my things I was doing in my lessons, but honestly, I had to really get myself in a calm headspace before my driving test. That included not making it a big deal in my head. And again, I know that sounds really silly because of course it's a big deal, right? This is a big day, but I feel like when you put that pressure on yourself, then it kind of sets you up for more of a chance for failure and to make silly errors that you end up getting marks for on your test. Hopefully nothing that would be severe, but just as best as you can, get into a really calm headspace before your test. I still did a couple of jobs for work because my test was in the afternoon, so I still did some morning work, but I still, you know, gave myself a little bit of time to make sure I ate some food, so I had some lunch. I even made myself some like chamomile tea to chill, you know, so I wasn't ready for bed, but like just a little bit of chamomile tea to like relax and just take a deep breath. Just know, I feel like I had to tell myself in my head that this is not the end of the world if I don't pass today, and to not to put so much pressure on yourself. So yeah, just keep as relaxed as you possibly can during your test too. So then keep that relaxed mindset, bring it into your driving test. And when you have that more relaxed demeanor and mindset, I just feel like you focus better on what you're doing, you go into it calmly, and you make better decisions. So I know that, again, that can be hard for people like myself who have anxiety and maybe some other things too, anything similar to that that you might deal with. So, but again, that's why I also kind of go back to, I think it would probably have felt a little less intimidating if I did an automatic driving test. But with me saying that, I am happy that I did learn manual because I can drive a manual in case of an emergency because my husband drives a manual car. So I do feel good about that. You know, when it comes to an emergency situation, if I had to use his car, I would know how to, even if it was a bit tricky at first, you know, for me to do it, but I at least know how and I had that knowledge, and I had the choice, you know, to then decide, do I want to go with automatic or manual? So just do the best you can. Find too, probably should have said this earlier when I talked about getting lessons, find a good instructor that you feel comfortable and confident with too. Give yourself enough time to, I mean, the tests book out pretty far ahead. So at the time I had booked my test, it was like 6 months ahead because there's been so little availability. I think since you know, lockdowns, like they're still trying to catch up with that, and there's not as many people, so they are understaffed. Maybe it's better though at the time that you're watching this video, but you have probably a few months at least till your actual driving test, so why not get some lessons in before then? So I hope that helps, and I hope that this kind of gives you some reassurance. It's also too, if you don't pass the first time, like again, like my last point, it's not the end of the world. It's just not the right time, and you can always book in for another one, and then you will be even more like, I feel like then you'll at least know what to expect when you do take it a second or third time, you know, like you'll know what to expect at least, and then you can feel a bit more confident and prepared going into it. But yeah, I hope that this video was helpful. If you guys want to hear more of my personal experience with my driving test, I could always share that too as another video. I do plan to share some more videos too. I'm just now going through my spouse visa extension, yay. Not so yay about, you know, the whole application process, right? But I'm glad that, you know, can do that, get that going. So I do want to make a video on that soon, so stay tuned for that for those of you who are also in a similar situation as me. And hopefully I can, yeah, just do some more fun life in the UK videos here. So let me know what you guys think. Give me some feedback or any ideas that you have. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please do like this. Maybe share it with somebody who just moved to the UK and they're trying to get on their feet and get back to driving again. I'm so glad to be driving again, honestly. I love driving, so I'm just, yeah, happy to have a car again. And I'm so used to the roads now, so it just feels a lot more natural. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.